In this new reality where designers are helping companies solve business problems, we creative thinkers are now thrust into the middle of a process with business people, expected to be the experts on design and then tell everyone else what we think should be done. There's a lot of people in our meetings who may know nothing about design and yet who will consistently tell us how to design. You see, they have a vested interest. We need to involve them, but it's difficult to manage the conversation in a way that keeps everyone's best interests, including the users, in mind. You see, everyone is a designer now. Everyone knows good design when they see it, even if they can't create it themselves. Just as you and I can choose the music that we like, even if we don't play an instrument, right? And so everyone wants to tell you how to do your job. This phenomenon is almost entirely unique to design. You wouldn't tell the accounting department how to organize their spreadsheets, would you? No executive is making judgment calls on what to name the properties in the code base. People only care about the part that they see. If the website is slow, for example, we want it to be faster, but the method in which the developers make it faster is obscured and irrelevant to us. When it comes to design, though, all of our work is exposed. Every part of it is visible. So it naturally conjures more opinions and ideas than many other areas in the organization. But more than that, your work is now becoming the interface of the entire company like never before. So the people who run the business have strong opinions, how your work reflects on them. So, because our work is the center of attention, we have to take responsibility for showing people how and why our work is valued. And that part doesn't come automatically. It takes work, it takes practice, but mostly it takes good communication. The problem with design in today's organizations can be summed up in one word: teamwork. Organizations today value teams. Teams value collaboration. That's often incompatible with a semi-subjective design process where one person really needs to own the look and feel. Meetings can sometimes turn into design by committee. The conversation can spiral out of control into a hodgepodge of well-intentioned tweaks that collectively spell doom for the overall goals of the project. That thing that we came together to accomplish has now been muddied by groupthink and mob mentality. Remember, teamwork always ends with work. So because of this, we see things like the CEO button. The CEO button is an unusual or otherwise unexpected request from an executive to add a feature that completely destroys the balance of a project and undermines the very purpose of a designer's existence. You might spend weeks or months building the best possible app. Your team has poured all the best practices that you learned at that one conference, and then one executive can come in and blow up the whole thing, right? We want to avoid this. Another common problem I see is the homepage syndrome. The homepage syndrome is a condition whereby the home screen of an application or website becomes a catch-all for everything, creating a garage sale of links, buttons, and banner ads that unravels the fabric of usability, causing designers to cry themselves to sleep. You see, sometimes no matter how hard we try, the homepage just becomes this huge mess. Everyone wants their business unit represented on the homepage. It's as if something doesn't exist if it isn't on the homepage, and we have to learn how to deal with this phenomenon. Now, I've found that the majority of issues or concerns that our stakeholders bring to our attention are just a matter of misunderstanding or miscommunication. The way we talk to them about our designs is the key to making sure we always end up with the best user experience. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, right? All human relationships are really nothing more than a series of bound up understandings and misunderstandings. That makes our words really powerful. Throughout human history, words have had significant power to change people, circumstances, entire systems of government. But words can also be used to build people up, to change minds, to reinforce positive connections. Sometimes just saying something out loud is all it takes to make it real. As a parent, I actually have to be careful about how I talk to my kids, because the things I say to them are the things that they're going to grow up to believe, whether or not what I say is true. If I'm constantly berating them over their behavior, for example, they'll believe bad behavior is just part of who they are. If I tell my kids they're stupid, they could grow up believing they shouldn't even try to learn. The things that I say to them are going to shape their understanding of themselves and their perception of the world around them. Eyewitness testimony, too, is frequently called into question because the way that police interview people can influence what they remember about crime. The truth is not necessarily what actually happened, but what we think happened. In fact, being a good communicator will give you more opportunities in life just overall. I'm amazed at the number of designers who'll send me a resume with no explanation. Freelancers will disappear, not communicate, make me wonder if the project is even going to succeed. So I don't hire them again. Overseas contractors, who are very talented people, can be really difficult to work with, not because they're unskilled, but because it's so difficult to communicate with them. I think being a communicator may be all it takes to set you apart from other designers, even designers who might be more artistically talented than you. Actually, when I interview designers for a role on my team, I always ask them, what makes a good design good? And invariably, I get answers that sound more like they came out of a Jonathan Ive memoir than real life experience. Very simply, good communicators win. But it's more than just communication. We have to turn those words into something that will enact change, compel people to agree with us. It's not just about using words with a frequency or persistence. It's about using them in a way that's compelling and convincing. It's about being articulate. Now, the key to being articulate is that you understand both the message you want to communicate and the response that you want in return. If you can craft your messages in such a way that they yield the desired response, you'll find you're much more successful at getting the things that matter to you. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that your ideas and your designs should speak for themselves. Well, it's too altruistic to believe that the best ideas are the ones that always win. They should, perhaps, but the reality is far from that. The best ideas, they get stuffed into an amalgamation of meetings where competing needs vie for attention. The person who can convince the other that they're right is the one who gets his way. And so designers lacking the ability to convince people why they did what they did end up on the losing side of that argument. They're forced to make changes they disagree with simply because they couldn't fend it off. Alternately, though, being articulate about our designs imparts intelligence. It shows that you're smart. You know what you're talking about. You have expertise in this area, and you can be trusted with the solution. It also demonstrates intentionality. You've put thought into it. You've pursued it. You're logical in your approach. This isn't just a random idea. There's purpose and focus. It expresses confidence. You know what you want. You know how to get it done. Having a solid argument shows you're not wishy-washy, that you mean what you say. But it also shows respect. You value everyone's opinions and time enough that you're well prepared. You're not wasting time or disregarding other people. So we need to harness the power of communication, to be articulate, and to use these skills to help people see that our decisions provide the best possible solution. Being articulate will help us be successful. Okay, so let's go back to the question that I asked designers when I interview them for a job on my team. What makes a good design good? Now, the right answer to that question is a design is good when it solves a problem, whatever that problem is. Business goals, usability, conversion, engagement, whatever the problem is, a good design solves it. And the difference between a good designer and a great designer is in their ability to solve those problems and articulate how their solution solves it. If you can do that, you're a great designer. So actually, I would say there are three things that your designs need to make you and yourself successful. The first is that it solves a problem, right? I already said that a design has to solve a problem. The next is that it's easy for users, right? If we're taking a user-centered design approach, then we naturally need our applications to be easy for users. But the third one, which I think is maybe a little less understood or maybe misunderstood, is that it's supported by everyone. You see, it's not enough to have a design that only solves a problem and is easy for users, because if not everyone's behind it, you're going to constantly rehash the same discussions and never get anywhere. Now, what happens when not everyone understands your designs? You end up having the same conversations over and over. The project scope slowly increases. You can't move as fast as you need to. You end up shipping a product with a compromised user experience. So you need to create an environment where everyone understands what you're doing so that you can move on to the next thing. In fact, I would go so far as to say that your ability to be thoughtful about a problem and articulate any solution is more important than your ability to design the perfect solution every single time. You see, often when people realize that you've put thought into it and you're being intentional, they're willing to trust you even if they disagree. So in that sense, being a great designer is just as much about your communication skills as it is about your design chops. You could have the most innovative design, but if no one understands what you're doing, then it's not going to go anywhere. So to do that, we're going to walk through the process of meeting with the client, talking about our designs. And as we walk through that process, I'll give you some practical ways that you can learn to talk about your designs. So let's take a step back in the process to the very first time you design a UI control. You need to make yourself consciously aware of every decision that you're making by answering these 3 questions. First, what problem does it solve, right? Second, how does it affect the user? And third, this is the one that's going to help you explain your design decisions to other people. Why is it better than the alternative? This should be your approach to everything that you design. So let's look at each one in more detail. Now, of all the things that we want to do with our design, this one tends to be the most obvious. We already know that our design has to solve problems, but we need to be better at understanding the problems we solve so we can articulate them to our stakeholders. Whatever the problem is, our job is to find a solution and measure success. How will we know we've done our job? By looking at the results before and after, tracking some specific metric and watching it improve. If you don't already have these kinds of measurable metrics, take the time to figure them out. Find out what the most important factors are for your stakeholders. Write them down and design to improve them. See, this is where our intuition becomes so vital. We can solve problems without thinking about it too much, right? In fact, this is what sets us apart from non-designers, our ability to intuitively solve problems with little more than a sense for what just feels right. The hard part, though, is figuring out what drives that intuition, what makes this feel right, so we can help other people see our perspective. So the practice of solving problems with design has to be accompanied by an awareness that will help us explain our decisions to other people. So as you seek to answer the question, what problem does this solve? You must make yourself aware of all the changes you're making and why. Those unconscious choices hold the key to explaining your designs to other people and making sure that your expert perspective remains at the center of the final decision process. Now, the best way to do that is just to write it down, to take notes as you go. A simple checklist will do. Often as I design, I write down the problem I'm trying to solve, and then I note the ways in which my design solves that problem, okay? Another good way to understand your thought process is to describe what you did using words. Since our end goal is to tell other people about it, why not attempt to just describe every detail in sentence form? Writing down how you see your work will reveal many of your motivations, some of which you never even realized were there. But remember, this isn't busy work. It shouldn't be time-consuming. Do enough to reveal your thought process. This isn't the kind of thing that you're going to share with your client or stakeholders. It's just primarily to help you understand how you're solving problems with your designs. Well, we may be solving business problems, but we have to make it simple to use if we're going to create a great user experience, right? This is another area where UX practitioners do pretty well. We know that usability is the core issue, but it can be hard to describe that to other people. So, at every step of the process, ask yourself, how does this affect the user? Well, the trick with answering this question is that we don't often know how our decisions are going to affect the user, right? We can only make our best guess, try it out, and then draw conclusions from what we observe. Again, write it down. You need to be able to answer this question first to yourself so that you can be prepared to give that answer to your stakeholders and your clients. One way that I capture how my design affects users is to write a story that is either based on a user session I observed or loosely based on the overall use case. So in this example, I knew that my stakeholders would be concerned about moving the hero slideshow down in favor of the recent projects at the top. So I had to present my suggestions in the context of how it would affect the user. So I did that just by describing the use case. When researchers are in the field, they need quick access to their data without having to navigate through the app. So rather than keep the hero image at the top of the screen, we're moving it down in favor of a recent projects list at the top. Okay, so once we've made some informed guesses, we have to check our ideas with real people. We aren't doing user experience design if we haven't actually seen a user experience it. The only way to actually know how your decisions affect users is to observe them. So make your best guess with the data you have, but then check your designs with real people and make notes to help you articulate that to your stakeholders. Okay, so it's not enough to solve problems and make our app easy to use, because if a stakeholder disagrees with our solution, then we're not going to get anywhere at all. Now, getting the support of everyone in your team, that's the primary focus of this series. We want to convince people that the way we've solved the problem will create a great user experience. You need to create an environment where everyone understands what you're doing so that you can move on to the next thing. So in order to get the support that we need, we have to understand our designs by asking, why is this better than the alternative? Now, implicit in this question is that we know what the alternatives are, we've considered them or even tried them, and we're prepared to explain why our solution is better. Now, we're usually cognitively aware of what some of these alternatives are. You maybe even tried them, right, and eventually landed on the solution that you believe to be best. But it's all those little movements that we need to be aware of so that we can help other people understand our thought process. So make a list of the other ways you could solve this problem. Create a bunch of alternative designs. Don't throw them away. Have them available to show the people on your team. With those alternatives, make a short list of why you think they don't solve the problem as well as your proposed design. That way, when someone offers a similar alternative, you can show them that you tried it. You're prepared to discuss why. Thinking critically in this way about why you did what you did is going to prepare you to discuss your decisions with the people that matter the most. All right, so it might be easy to see how being more articulate can help us succeed, right? But in practice, it's far more complicated than that. Being articulate is more than just saying the right things, because nothing we say is going to have any effect if we don't first consider the people we're communicating with. We need to take the next step towards being a great designer, to begin seeing things from the perspective of our stakeholders. And that's the subject of our next session.